XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals. Understanding environmental risks starts with a global perspective. Through XNatura's environmental platform, it is possible to focus on specific sites, providing real-time data. XNatura integrates artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, satellite technologies, and cloud computing to provide advanced environmental analysis and precision engineering tools. Landscapes are constantly evolving, shaped by both nature and human activity. Understanding and monitoring these impacts is essential to preserving biodiversity. Data alone is not enough. Human expertise makes the difference. The combination of IoT sensors, AI, and experts ensures that insights are accessible and usable by all stakeholders, supporting informed strategies. From assessment to regeneration, set targets, define action plans, and explore scenario analyses to align your business with environmental goals.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar. Today, we're going to talk about the agri-food sector that has a very, very strong link with nature and biodiversity. Today with me, Giorgio. He's the sustainability specialist at XNatura, and Maura Vallone, sustainability specialist at XFarm. So before going on, I want to show you the lineup. So as usual, we're gonna start with an introduction of XNatura, who we are. Then we're gonna go through the regulatory background. We're gonna see an overview of impact, risk in the sector. Then we're gonna see the main directives affecting the sector. And then we're going to go through a live demo of our platform. And finally, we're going to see a case study that we developed together with our partner XFarm on a magnificent company. It's called Gruppo Colussi, which is an Italian company in the agri-food sector. And as usual, we have the last 10 minutes to wrap up and the Q&A session, okay? As you know, if you have any question during the webinar, you can start putting them in the chat and we will answer to them at the end of the webinar. For the ones who don't know us, we are XNatura. We are a leading naturtech environmental platform that monitors nature and biodiversity through technologies. We received a 2 million fund from EU to develop the first biodiversity credit in Europe. We are 60 people. We are monitoring over 1 million hectares all over the world. We spread more than 10,000 IoT devices to monitor on the fields. Those are some of our institutional partners. So, for example, the European Space Agency that helped us develop some of our technologies. We work with companies, private companies, of course, but also municipalities and natural parks. We are the Nature Division Intelligence of a company called 3B that was born in 2017, that it's very focused on nature regeneration. And we monitor as XNatura nature through remote sensing, sensor on the ground, lab analysis, and on-field survey. Before starting with the regulatory framework, I wanted to give it to you an idea of which are the most important platform benefits in the sector. So first of all, data digitalization. So XNatura enables to transform agricultural and food supply chain data into structured digital formats. This facilitates efficient data integration, improves traceability, of course, and across the entire supply chain, and support data-driven decision-making. The second reason is supply chain risk analysis and prioritization. So thanks to XNatura, we can help to identify the fields that are most under climate risk and are heavily relevant on natural resources, enable to prioritize actions effectively. The third reason is creating scenario analysis. So we can generate complete scenario analysis with future KPIs projection. The fourth benefit is biodiversity action plan and nature strategy. In fact, thanks to XNatura, we can create tailored biodiversity action plans that are based on data. Fifth reason is benchmarking and target verification. We can define whether the fields meet environmental target and perform benchmark comparison within the industry. So you can also see if you are, a best practice in the industry. Then a CSR and TNFD compliance. Of course, all the platform is built in order to follow TNFD, LEAP approach, and ESRS standards. And finally, click to generate report. It's really, really easy to get the report. You have all the data in the platform, and you can actually click to get your own report to integrate it into your sustainability report, for example. Okay, so about the sector. So the sector has a very, big value. It's like 9 trillion of the globe. This is the global market, and it's the most nature dependent, one of the most nature dependent sector and climate exposed sector. And the focus is, of course, on the value chain, because these support resilience, soil health, water efficiency, and climate smart practices. So this sector is really, evolving really fast with different innovative approaches and new way to farm, for example. So urban farming, alternative proteins, regenerative agriculture, and agri-tech. So all of these solutions are reshaping the food system. Why it is so strictly related to nature? Of course, the agri sector has a huge impact to nature. I just want to point out some numbers. So, for example, the food system is responsible for about 34% of the global GHG emissions. Agriculture is primarily driver of the 86% of global deforestation. The 33% of soil worldwide are degraded already. And intensive farming have contributed to a 60% decline of vertebrates species. So those are the impacts, of course, but also the sector has a strong dependencies to nature. So some numbers also in that case, over the 75% of the world food crop depends on at least or in part on the pollination. 1 hectare of healthy soil can store up 20,000 liters of water. And genetic diversity from wild crops contribute to 60% of traits used in crop breeding programs. So it depends a lot on nature. Of course, the sector has a strong risk related to nature. There are physical risks such as drought and heat stress, extreme storms and flooding, wildfires, sea level rise, ocean acidification, invasive species, but it also has transitional risks. So increasing carbon price, public policy restrictions, less carbon intensive technology, shift in market preferences, growing investor action, and rising reputational risk. So we saw the sector has impact, also depend on nature, and there are many physical and transitional risks. That's why the sector is actually well regulated. The regulation is evolving so fast, and especially rely on the supply chain. We can start from a general overview of the global tendencies. So everything started with the CBD in 1992. In fact, during the CBD, a milestone that it was recognized the importance of biodiversity for global food security. Also in the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, this was back in 2015. The UN agenda integrates sustainability as a pillar of the agri-food sector, especially with SDG 2, which is zero hunger, and SDG 13, which is climate action. And then we have the FAO guidelines for agroecology. The FAO promotes agroecology as an integrated approach to sustainably transform agricultural system. So this is a very general overview of the global tendencies. Of course, in EU, we have a specific strategy for agriculture. So at the heart of the EU agenda, we have the Farm to Fork strategy, which aims to create a fair, healthy, and environmentally friendly food system by addressing the entire value chain. And we know it's not that easy. Of course, it sets some targets that are aligned with the goal to become the first continent that is climate neutral by 2050. And this strategy, the Farm to Fork strategy, it's also aligned with the EU biodiversity strategy by 2030. Okay. Of course, in Europe, we have the Common Agricultural Policy, and it has the goal to align economic incentive with environmental goals through sustainable farming practices. So I know the table is really, full of information, but look at, for example, the biodiversity protection. So the goal is to preserve habitats and species. Which is the final goal, is to halt biodiversity loss. How do we do that? With Natura 2000 funding, Habitats Directive, of course. While, for example, for the climate action, the goal is to contribute to EU climate neutrality targets. And how do we do that? With carbon farming, renewable energy project on farms, precision agriculture. So there are many aspects, such as environmental sustainability, economic viability, rural development, and we have some key instruments to reach them. Okay. Of course, I already said that there is a strong focus on supply chain. There are two main regulatory frameworks that are shaping how companies manage ESG risk across the supply chain in the agri-food system, and are the EUDR. So the EUDR is the Directive on Deforestation, and this requires companies placing certain commodities in the EU market to prove that they are not linked to the deforestation, of course, or forest degradation. And there's also another directive which is not specific on the agri-food sector, but still is the CSRD, and this mandates companies to conduct a due diligence through their entire supply chain. So identifying and mitigating adverse human rights and environmental impacts. What company should do with these two directives? Of course, it's important to trace, so traceability, then use verification and legal compliance, and in supply chains due diligence, risk monitoring and mitigation, and the integration of environmental and social criteria into procurement practices. Of course, those two directives that are really specific for the supply chains are really linked to the CSRD, which is another directive. We all know this directive, of course. It's the one that oblige companies to report about sustainability. Of course, something changed with Omnibus, we know that. But still, the CSRD is still in force and will remain the reference for reporting on nature. Reporting how? Of course, with the SRS. The SRS are the standards that Europe developed to report, and there is a standard specific for nature and biodiversity. Of course, also those standards have introduced the concept of double materiality. That it really can be applied on the agri-food sector, because we saw at the beginning that there are some impacts, but also the sector depend on nature. So impact materiality and financial materiality. In the sector, of course, there are some also, let's say, voluntary certification. They have become pretty, used tools to demonstrate that there are some, efforts from companies in reducing environmental impact, protecting biodiversity, and managing resources. So those are the, let's say, most famous in the sector. There is the Global Gap, that ensures sustainable farming practices, focusing on resource use, soil health, and biodiversity. There is the ISO that guides company in managing and reducing their environmental impact through systematic management system. There is the EU Ecolabel that identifies products with lower environmental footprints across their life cycle. And finally, this is very linked to the UDR, the Rainforest Alliance that promotes biodiversity-friendly farming and better livelihoods, especially in tropical agriculture. So how XNatura can actually help you developing nature strategy? We are a platform that define a comprehensive biodiversity and nature and climate strategy, fully compliant, of course, with the SRS, but also with TNFD LEAP approach. Very, very brief, something about TNFD metrics on the agri-food sector. Of course, the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure has developed specific guidelines for food and agriculture. Those are the main, the core sector metrics. So deforestation, of course, and conversion-free products, products from areas of water scarcity, total spatial footprint, extent of land, freshwater, ocean use change. And there are also some other additional sector metrics: land use efficiency, food loss waste, soil organic, and carbon stock. So very briefly about our LEAP approach. So the platform helps to locate all the, for example, supply chain fields. How? Using satellite images. It can analyze land use, detect biodiversity hotspots, and identify areas at risk. Then the platform can evaluate, of course, nature-related impact and dependencies. Then the platform can assess. So XNatura quantifies nature-related risk and opportunities by integrating key indicators such as MSA land use. You're going to see it during the demo session. Now, very briefly. And then finally, prepare. Of course, prepare. The platform helps to set targets and also get all the compliant report, ensuring transparency and traceable reporting. The 5-step for integrating nature into your business. So first of all, measuring, then prioritizing, setting targets, and acting and disclosing track. So the first thing is to measure. So in the measure phase, the goal is to collect and organize high quality, transparent, integrated data for your business. So we can get all the information on the whole supply chain thanks to remote sensing. But we can also measure with sensor on the ground. We have different sensors such as Spectrum and Birdie, which are bioacoustic sensor to monitor pollinators and birds. We have camera trap for mammals. We have the PolyX, which is a wild pollinator shelter equipped with IoT sensor. And then we have the AgTech. Of course, what I would like to underline is that the platform can use those sensors, but can actually digest the data you already have on fields with other sensors. This is very important for us because we know that it's very important to have all the nature-related data in a single platform. So since the beginning for us, it was very important to make the platform really flexible on that. Then finally, you can also measure with on-field survey and lab analysis. Once you have measured, you can prioritize. This is very important for example, critics supply chains such as coffee or chocolate. So you can have also GPS and prioritize according to, of course, your goal, which are the sites that should be under focus, maybe for regeneration reason. Once you have prioritized, you can set targets. It's very important to set targets after the measuring and the prioritization. Otherwise, we set targets that are not in line with what we can actually do. How can we set targets? In different way. We can make the comparison with the control area. And this is especially valid if you are near high biodiversity areas, such as natural parks, national parks. You can make the control with the benchmark of the industry, or you can follow some, existing regulations, such as, half herd regenerate the 30%, like the natural restoration law, or, for a full recovery. Once you have set targets, you can act. The platform helps you develop, of course, the biodiversity action plan. We saw this at the beginning of the webinar, but also a biodiversity strategy for the entire business. And finally, of course, disclose and track. Once you have all the data, you can, once you have measured, you can prioritize, you can set targets, and then, of course, you can disclose to all your stakeholders. Those are some of the companies that have already choose XNatura. As you may see, a lot of them are from the agri-food sector. And today we're gonna go through a demo session using, of course, our tool, and we're gonna see an agricultural production site. So George is joining me. Enjoy the demo, okay?
Thank you, Virginia, and good morning, everyone. I'm Giorgio Puzzaghini, Sustainability Specialist in XNatura, and I'm going to guide you to the practical showcase of the XNatura platform, specifically suited for the agri-food sector. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll turn off my camera just for avoiding connection problems. So, okay, perfect. This is the first thing you will see when you access to the platform. We are in the overview section, and in the map, we can take a look at all the sites of our hypothetical company. Clicking into one of those, we can get the access to the specific site, but for first, just let's take a look to some useful data. We have 37 sites all around the world, with a total extension of 41,000 hectares, and our supply chain has 30 different production processes, so it's very differentiated. Here we have an overview of the impact, dependencies, and risks. This is extremely relevant for the agri-food sector because it allows to understand in which sites we have to prioritize interventions, evaluating, for example, if it is the case to change location, if a site is expected to have extreme weather conditions in the next years. We notice here that 25 sites out of 37 are under hydrological risks in our supply chain, while 27 out of 37 are above average climate change. So those are some useful data to evaluate. And more than those simple overviews, it is very effective, in my opinion, to see this trend of the sites, the matrix. We can compare on the X and Y axis some parameters and visualize clearly the relation between them and the trend of the site. I have chosen the MSA of the site, the mean species abundance. We will analyze it better later. And the pollinator abundance of the site, because it is clearly a very relevant topic for an agri field. It's related to pollination, which is clearly a key ecosystem service. And we notice from the graph that there's a clear relation between those two parameters. So we can evaluate, for example, if it is the case to generate or take some space for biodiversity in general in our site. But that's only an example. We can take in consideration many other factors. We see the list, for example, hydrogeological risk, if we are in a flood-prone area, for example. Okay, but let's suppose we have decided which site to prioritize. Every point in the graph corresponds to a specific site. So we can move to the specific site section. We already loaded it. Okay, perfect. In the specific site part, the first thing is already a map. Why? Because the platform follows the TNFD LEAP approach. It stands for Locate, Evaluate, Assess, Prepare. We already saw that. And this is important in order to be compliant with all the main international frameworks. So this is the perimeter of our site, I mean the pink or purple one, as you prefer, while the white one is 5 per 5 kilometers, and it's the control area. So it is very convenient here to visualize all the different layers. For example, land cover field allows us to understand the land use. In this case, it's very easy. It's everywhere Triticum durum or durum wet, while choosing hydrological risk. We can see if there are some flood-prone areas. This is not the case, as we are not in a mountainous area and there are no rivers very close. We see for the large part, it's just level 2, so it's quite safe. Level 3 just for a small area in the control area. So going below, there are some geographical data. We are in São Paulo region, in Brazil, and there's a brief description of biome typology, the production process, and also site activity and regulatory context description. Everything can be edited with the help of the AI too, but can be also revised by our nature strategist, which can revise all the data if needed, or even can be modified by you in the case you need to add or modify something. Okay, we are now in the highlights part. We see the overview of status and impacts in our site. It's a very clear, simple visualization, and it is already divided following the ESRS standards. You see E1, E2, E3, E4 for biodiversity, for example. It's very clear, and it's another proof that the platform is compliant with all the main frameworks, among which, obviously, there's the CSRD. So it is very useful for reporting for nature. We can also take a look at impacts and dependencies. This is a simple table with impacts linked to every production process of our site. In our case, it's very easy. We have only mixed farming. The table is automatically generated, having with source the anchor database. We see the source of displayed data. But here also you can modify the values if you notice something different from reality. For example, if there's an introduction of more invasive species, you can click to edit, choose the intensity, reach, humidity, everything, and you can also ask the EAI for an help. Here, again, our strategist can follow the process and modify everything and revise clearly. Now we enter in the core of the platform. We have our metrics. They are scientific-based, standardized, and comparable data, which give us ready-to-use data for reporting. We already saw the land use from the initial map. It is interesting here to notice maybe the very low coverage of natural habitats, in particular, if compared to the control area, which is much more natural. There's a value of 95 versus 0. And then that's not extremely relevant because we don't have some relevant sites like lakes or seas or rivers very close to our site. We can go directly to the microclimate section, and we can observe that the site is suffering increase in temperatures, especially in the last 10 years. We have a plus 0.35 degrees. And so it becomes very interesting to see the future projection, to understand which action we can do and what we can prepare for the future. Is it possible also to compare the different IPCC scenarios? I hope it won't change too much. Yes, it's more or less the same, but as you can see, the data are not nice for the next years. Another very important thing to analyze, surely, is the rain trend. It decreased significantly by 31%, more or less, and is expected to remain low in the next years. We can take a look at the trends, but probably, yes, it will remain very low in the next years and can be critical for our crop or very expensive to us if you have to maintain the irrigation at high levels, for example. And at least the aridity levels seems okay. That's not so bad for our site. Okay, now we arrived to the king of the biodiversity metrics, the MSA. This is an indicator which expresses the richness and distribution of species compared to the completely natural state unaffected by human activities. So the value goes from 0 to 100, where 100 indicates a completely undisturbed ecosystem, completely natural. 0 is completely anthropically habitat, you can say. In our site, we have a terrible level of biodiversity. It's only 10, while in the control area is 73. And even the benchmark has better level than our site. But we noticed during the prioritization phase that an MSA increase can be very beneficial for our site for increasing the pollination services. So we can help ourselves by using an extremely important tool of our platform, which is the scenario analysis function. For first, we can set our targets. We already saw them, but those are the most common examples. And then we can perform a simulation of the conditions we'd like to test. Let's suppose, for example, we decided to regenerate a part of the field and understand what are the opportunities of having a better MSA, so a better pollinator abundance in the site. Well, obviously, I already prepared it, so we can pass to the extensive regeneration side. We see immediately that MSA has changed, but I want to start from the map. I select the land cover field. What have we done? We have chosen to dedicate a part of the field to natural grasslands, this one in white, and some border areas with some lawn, so some natural areas in the during wet crop. So we can continue the journey in the platform using the regenerative site. All these parts remain more or less the same. Obviously, climate change won't be affected by our activities, but the MSA now have changed significantly, as we saw. And what can be the possible implications, practical implications? An example, in my opinion, it's very interesting there. Yes, here is evaluating if it's possible to integrate in our business model the honey production. As we notice, there is a great predisposition of the site to produce that. So we can evaluate if it is the case to install some hives or sensor by monitoring the pollination abundance, because it seems that there's an important room for improvement in this sense. So this is a type of evaluation we can do. There's also the risk section. In our case, not so relevant, as data suggests that there is a very low probability of an agri-intensity event in the next 2 years in our site. But we notice from the collected data that in the past there were some flood events in the region. The same concept is valid for this landslide and erosion risk. We can request the air quality data if we need it. About soil temperature is not critical. You see, it's okay, but we can monitor it if our crop suffers an extremely high temperature. We are not so interested in light pollution because we are not close to an urban site. And then we arrived to the scenario section where we can directly compare data from all the scenarios we have created. We have taken in consideration the intensive V1, which was the first one I showed you. And the second one, this one, is the extensive regeneration. We can clearly see and compare all the values, MSA, pollinator abundance, nectar potential, impermeability, etc., etc. The last part I want to show you is dedicated to the sensor measurement. In this case, it is a demo, so we have no IoT sensor on the field, but I can show you a real case. That's a farm in Italy. From the map, we notice immediately the sensor, the spectrum sensors, which Virginia already showed you. And I just want to go rapidly to the dedicated section where we have a collection of all the detected clusters of pollinators. The spectrum doesn't recognize the exaspecies. It goes through the clusters. Clearly, we don't need the species level detection for biodiversity monitoring. We are interested in abundance and richness, so more on the ecosystem services side. It is interesting here to see the number of registered pollinators from the spectrum. This is only a week. We can compare levels of pollinators with temperature and precipitation levels, just to compare them and understand better which are the behavior of our pollinators. Okay, so I'm running out of time. So the last thing I want to say is that the platform offers the possibility to generate an automatic report provided by the AI, but obviously which is revised by our native strategists to better suit your needs. It's very useful and time efficient when you have to use data for reporting. We already saw it is CSRD, using also SRS and TNFD compliant. So it is very fast and efficient as a tool. Okay, I thank you for my attention. I gave the lead back to Virginia.
Thank you so much. So we can go back to our presentation. Actually, we are running out of time, so I just want to remind that if you have any question, I've seen that some of you started to put some questions. So if you have questions, now is the time to write them on the chat, and we're gonna answer to them after this last case study. So now I want to talk to you about this case study that we developed with our partner X-Farm. So Colusi is a company that is really committed to regenerative agriculture. And we developed this project in collaboration with X-Farm. And today Maura is here with us to talk about this project involving 2 model farms in Umbria, covering approximately 300 hectares. So Maura, she's joining me on the stage to explain what we did together.
Thank you, Virginia, and good morning, everyone. And first of all, thanks to Trebi for organizing this really interesting webinar and for inviting us to drive you through this use case. Before moving to the specificity of the use cases, I'd like to give Virginia already gave us some insight, especially on the regulatory aspects. So I'll be really brief. As many of you might have heard, it does not exist a universal definition for regenerative agriculture, but we can define it as an holistic approach, which includes a set of practices to generate resilience at farm level. And unlike conventional approaches, regenerative agriculture focuses not only on maintaining, but actually improving soil health, increasing biodiversity, and enhancing ecosystem services, all while ensuring productivity and economic viability for the farmers, of course. At the heart of this model is the soil, which is not a lifeless substrate, but a living system that we must care of, regenerate, and monitor over time. And practices such as cover cropping, grazing, crop rotation, minimum tillage can really improve soil health and help agricultural production. As at X-Farm Technologies, our role is to support farmers. Virgi, you can move to the next slide. And companies like Colussi along the journey towards a more sustainable production and supply chain. So we do that by providing a digital ecosystem to improve farm management from different perspectives. And what we are really proud of is the capability of offering a really comprehensive platform where the majority of useful features can be are available for farmers. So from the FMIS, so Farm Management Information System, to centralized farm data, to decision support systems to guide agronomic choices, but also tools that are more closely related with the topic we are talking about today, so with the sustainability sphere. From the sustainability assessment module that allows for an automatic reporting of 4 environmental indicators, to a module which is specifically built for regenerative agriculture that allows for the tracking of practices, soil metrics, and advancement and the effect of these practices on the environment. Moving now to the use case of Colussi, that, as Virginia already introduced, is a well-known food brand which is really committed to sustainability. Together with this group, we launched a pilot project focused on regenerative transition across their supply chain. The project includes 2 model farms that have been selecting within the supply chain for their openness and willingness to onboard on a pilot project, so on 5 experimental years. The total area is of 120 hectares for now, and distributed across 8 fields. Since the beginning of the project, we have performed soil sampling and analysis to define what's the level of soil organic carbon at time 0, collecting more than 50 samples of soil. And together with the 2 farms included and the experts in field agricultural consultancy, we have performed training sessions both in the field and online to define, together with the farmers, which set of practices to test in their specific contexts. And here, what I'd like to stress is that the approach is a bottom-up approach. So the idea is to involve farmers in the decision-making of practices selection. Because the goal of the project with Colussi and in general is not just about compliance or labels, but it's about understanding how regenerative agriculture can improve farmers' resilience and eventually extend this experience to also the other farms of the supply chain for a large-scale transition. So just to briefly summarize, our approach is focused on 2 main pillars: soil management, including diagnostic, monitoring, and implementation of best practices based on both digital tools and agronomic expertise. and on the other hand, functional biodiversity, where the goal is not just counting species, but understanding how biodiversity contributes to ecosystem services. And this is exactly where 3B comes in and where our partnership is built. So I leave the floor to Virginia again to go through the rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maura. See you later. You can stay and we will see you at the Q&A session. So I wanted to close with the Colusi case study. So everything that Maura said, it's what they have done. We specifically put on the fields some sensors, IoT sensor that are used to monitor, pollinators, and can give us some insight about the regenerative agriculture practices that they are using. So we are, able to collect data, and they can actually use those data to make really good decision making. So, of course, you know that you can always download the white paper about this webinar on our site. You will find there not only this white paper, but also all the white papers of the past webinars. So on real estate, on the energy sector, and one general on the platform. As usual, I would like to say a little bit about our next events. We're going to be present in Europe. So our two colleagues, Elisa and Martina, they're going to go at the beginning of September in Frankfurt for world-class sustainability and resource management event. So if you're going to be there, you can find our colleagues and you can have a chat with them. Same thing for the Regenerative Agriculture Summit Europe. That's going to be in Amsterdam the following week from the 8th to the 10th of September. And given the fact that we're talking about agriculture and regenerative agriculture, I would say that this is particularly interesting event for you. There's going to be me, also Elisa and Martina, and Simone. So you can find us there. And I'm pretty sure that X-Farm is going to join also this event. Another event we are joining in Zurich in September. It's really focused on energy, but if you're interested in that, you can join. We're going to actually have a presentation with one of our customers in this sector, which is Cubico. And then you're gonna find us also at the beginning of October in Amsterdam again at the Economist Impact, which is the 5th Annual Sustainability Week. Martina and me, we are gonna be there. As you know, we have a Telegram channel where you can find all the news and all the information, all the events we are attending. So if you want to know everything about XNatura, you want to be updated, please join the Telegram channel. And now we can start our Q&A session. Okay, so the first question, I think it's from Valerie. She asked, hello, thanks for the webinar. My question is, who are the customer users of your platform? Are these large agri-food chains, collectives? Okay, this is a very actually interesting question because it depends. We have a lot of clients across the entire supply chain in the agri-food sectors, from brand that sells to large retail chains to individual farming companies. So usually the brands, so B2C brands, they are really more interested in assessing their supplier portfolio. So assessing, for example, climate risk in their entire portfolio, especially in those sectors that are really risky. So the chocolate supply chain, the coffee supply chain. while the farming companies, also if they're big, they are more interested in proving that they are using some, for example, regenerative farming practices. But you saw also that Gruppo Colusi, they are a very, very large company, and they are doing a project that proves their regenerative farming practices. So it really depends on the goal, but we have client on the entire supply chain. We have another question by Ocean. It's asking, hello, thanks for the webinar. My question is, why MSA and not PDF? Is there a way to link PDF to MSA? I think the best to answer to this is Giorgio.
I'll try. Okay, MSA is more suited for the ecosystem level side, addressed biodiversity loss and nature-related risk. They're important for understanding long-term viability. PDF, it's more about the insights for extinction risks of individual species. It is more utilized in conservation biology to evaluate risk level of species under different scenarios. But the MSA is more suited for evaluating the broader ecosystem health. One could not replace exactly the other, as they measure different aspects of biodiversity, but they surely can be complemented in some conservation strategies. We have chosen to use the MSA because it is also the most recognized metrics for biodiversity. So it is also more comparable than PDF.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question from James. From what size of land does your platform make sense? Actually, there is no size. We would say that it could make sense for very small to very big land. So this is not really a matter. So it depends on the objective of the project, of course. But you may have very small project or big fields to monitor. It depends on what you think. It's a small size of land. Okay, so Francesco asking, hello everyone. First of all, thanks for the highly informative session. Given the strong emphasis on compliance with existing regulation, transparency and traceability seems to be two particularly relevant aspects of XNatura. So my question is, who are you able to ensure the application of these two principles in EA-powered platform? How are you able to ensure the application of these two principles in the EA-powered platform? So the principles are, I think, transparency and traceability. So the EI helps us to get all the data that we need. The data are gained from partners, as I said. So for example, the satellite images, we get them from European Space Agency, and we also rely on a lot of public database. So I would say that transparency, it's not really linked to EI, but it's linked to the fact that we get data from public databases and other scientific partners. About the traceability, I would say it itself on the platform, because the platform can actually gives the data on the project as time passes. So everything is traceable, and you can have only in one platform. And so I would say that the platform itself makes everything traceable, because you can trace the value chains thanks to the platform. So I hope we answered to all of the question. So I actually remind you that you can join our Telegram channel. If you have all of the information and update about XNatura. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Giorgio. Thank you, X-Farm and Maura, for joining us and for the collaboration in the Gruppo Colusi project. Bye.